That's pretty much, well, not confirmed by the UFC, but confirmed by Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev came out and said, no, that fight's not happening. He's got lots of work to do in the welterweight division. Outside of that, I mean, Michael Chandler's ranked number 13. There's Renato Moicano at 10. There's Dan Hooker at number 8. He wouldn't be a bad stylistic matchup for Conor McGregor, but I think it's going to be like an old school throwback and something big and something that's going to blow people away. Dustin Poirier would do that. I think Jorge Masvidal would do that. And certainly a third fight with Nate Diaz, that would definitely blow the roof off.
He's gonna move a wee bit.
You're under arrest. You're under arrest. Stop resisting.
Conor McGregor is the perfect example. Why do you think he's such a big star? You think he's such a big star because he's funny? Yeah, that's part of it. You think he's such a big star because he speaks so well? Absolutely part of it. And you just keep going down the line of all these things that makes him a star. But number one, first and foremost, the reason he is a global superstar and people love this guy is because he's a real fighter. This guy, I'm the guy that makes the phone calls and hears people going, yeah, I'm not going to take that fight, or I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that. Never has Conor McGregor said, Lorenzo and I were standing in his living room. Kid just woke up, got out of bed, he's in his underwear, okay? Doesn't even have time to process what's really going on. Looks us dead in the eye and says, I'm going to take a shower and get dressed and work out. Let me know after I'm done working out who I'm fighting. Doesn't care.
Right.
And that, people feel that, and people notice that. And
All right, so listen closely. The rumors about Conor McGregor making a comeback haven't just resurfaced, they've detonated, swelling from quiet whispers into something impossible to ignore. And the word on the street, backed by unusually solid intel, is that the Notorious isn't dabbling or teasing. He's buried deep inside a savage training camp, obsessively sharpening himself for what insiders claim is his most anticipated return yet. A night rumored to unfold on the historic White House fight card. But here's where it gets strange. This time, something feels off in a way that should make you pay attention. There's no circus energy swirling around him, no flashy distractions, no yachts, no whisker-fueled theatrics, none of the chaos that once followed him like smoke before a fire. Instead, behind closed doors, it's just a former double champion, stripped of noise, stripped of spectacle, grinding in silence, chasing something he once held so effortlessly, the fierce, almost untouchable flame that made him feel invincible inside the octagon. And if he truly walks onto a stage this historic, this monumental, understand this, it won't be for nostalgia, and it won't be for a paycheck. That would be the easy play. No, this feels calculated, deliberate, like a man preparing to flip a switch the world forgot existed. Because if he shows up there, under those lights, it won't be to remind us who he was. It'll be to prove, in the most unforgiving way possible, that he never stopped being that man at all.
One, White House is what everybody's talking about. Big card on June 14th. There's going to be 100,000 people across the street.
I'm going to be in there.
Who's more likely to fight on that card, Jon Jones or Conor McGregor?
I'll say Conor McGregor. Listen,
Why?
man, if you're gonna have the biggest fight card of all time, you gotta have the biggest star the UFC has ever seen.
Now here's where things take a sharper turn. When it comes to Conor McGregor, Asa Khan understands something most people forget. Sometimes the loudest explosion is a tweet that vanishes in seconds. You remember that one, right? The short-lived, almost reckless post McGregor fired off before erasing it like it never existed. Except it did, and the shockwaves were instant. Michael Bisping, never one to miss subtext, immediately tore into it with the precision of a man who's seen too many secrets leaked too early. McGregor claimed he'd been offered a fight, claimed he accepted the opponent's terms, claimed he was simply waiting on the final contract to hit his inbox. Then, gone, deleted, wiped clean. But here's the unsettling part. Why say it at all? Bisping studied the timing, the wording, the abrupt disappearance, and said it felt real. Too real to be random noise, not a drunken tease, not bait. He hinted it sounded like someone who spoke before the green light was given, like a trigger pulled seconds before the signal. Something monumental, perhaps, that wasn't meant for public consumption. Not yet. And if Bisping's instinct is on point, if this wasn't theater but a genuine slip, then what are we actually looking at? A negotiation in its final breath, a return already locked behind closed doors. Because if that tweet wasn't fantasy, if it was a crack in the curtain, then this so-called comeback isn't distant speculation. It's close, uncomfortably close. And the only question now is who wasn't ready for us to know.
McGregor, according to his recently deleted tweet, he's back, he's coming, he's on.
I'm coming!
What did he say? He said, I have been offered an opponent and I accept. He said, I've been offered an opponent and I accept, waiting on my contract. Now that tweet recently got deleted as well. One would assume, right, reading between the lines, could be wrong, that he's telling the truth, that he got the offer, they've agreed an opponent, and he was very excited, so he tweeted about something, then he was like, oh shit, I'm not supposed to say anything yet, or whatever, so he deleted it, okay? And obviously, it's a nice little PR move, it generates some interest for Conor McGregor, and the interest for Conor McGregor, he doesn't need to generate interest, let's be honest, okay? Everyone is
Continuing with that razor-sharp breakdown, Michael Bisping didn't hedge, didn't dance around it, he laid the whole thing bare. Love him or despise him, he said, it doesn't matter. Conor McGregor is still, by a country mile, the single biggest draw this sport has ever leaned on. And to drive that point home, Bisping reached back to the volatile history between McGregor and Nate Diaz, a rivalry that refuses to fade no matter how much time passes. One win apiece. Two brutal, momentum-shifting wars inside the octagon that shattered expectations and pulled in staggering numbers, proof that when their names share a poster, the world stops scrolling. Their first clash detonated the scene, Diaz locking in that shocking submission, silencing the noise and carving a moment that still echoes through MMA history. Then came the sequel, a relentless chess match soaked in blood and pride, McGregor adjusting, recalibrating, surviving, ultimately edging out a razor-close decision, but only after absorbing punishment that would have broken most men. And here's their hook, rivalries like that don't just disappear. So if Nate Diaz is serious, truly serious, about unfinished business, about reclaiming the spotlight in this new era he often claims he can dominate, then what does that mean? Because a trilogy wouldn't just be another fight, it would be combustible, immediate, unavoidable, the kind of announcement that hijacks headlines worldwide. And if the UFC senses even a flicker of that demand building again, you have to wonder, are we closer to that third war than anyone's willing to admit?
Nate Diaz, that is correct. Stockton's own, king of the face slap, whatever you want to call him.
I don't give a
I don't give a either. I don't give a either.
Nate Diaz, he was never far away from a bit of controversy, okay? He was talking recently, and he said that he's coming back. He's got unfinished business. He's going to take over. That this generation of fighters, they're all crap, and he's going to come in, take over. He's got unfinished work to do.
McGregor 3, I want to fight maybe Dustin Poirier if he's subject to pussy, and then maybe Mike Perry. Let's see what happens in the future, though.
And someone said, what about the White House? He's like, oh yeah, that'd be dope too.
Yeah, the White House would be perfect.
You're the man.
Now, we've talked about this many times. Of course, Diaz and McGregor, they are one apiece. Nate Diaz shocked the world. He wasn't
surprise, mother.
when he choked out Conor McGregor, and of course they fought again. Conor came back. It was another great performance. He dropped him with leg kicks. He dropped him with every left hand that he threw. But it was a war, and Diaz made him work, and Diaz even had Conor running away at one point because he was getting a little bit tired. But the fact of the matter is that those were two of the most watched fights in UFC history, much like all of Conor McGregor's fights, okay? He is by far and large.
Bisping didn't stop there. He doubled down, saying if this rumored White House card actually materializes, if it shifts from fantasy to ink on paper, he fully expects Conor McGregor to be planted right at the center of it, unavoidable, undeniable. And then he stirred the pot. Instead of leaning into the heavily speculated clash with Michael Chandler, he floated a different spark altogether, Jorge Masvidal, not as a throwaway idea, but as a matchup he'd personally rather see, an explosive collision of swagger and violence that feels unpredictable in all the right ways. Still, he wasn't quick to slam the door on a third war with Nate Diaz either. Far from it. He emphasized that Diaz remains a gravitational force in MMA, armed with that near-mythical, cult-like following that mirrors the aura of his equally legendary brother. And that's where things twist again, because Nick Diaz, the older sibling, has quietly hinted at a return of his own, claiming he feels refreshed, sharper, in a far better place mentally and physically, despite how painfully rough his last appearance against Robbie Lawler looked to the casual eye. Bisping's point was clear but loaded. If both Diaz brothers are healthy, motivated, and genuinely ready to reclaim the spotlight, the equation changes overnight. Suddenly, this isn't just a fight card, it's a maze of blockbuster possibilities, multiple headliners, multiple pay-per-view detonations waiting to happen. And if even two of those pieces align at once, we might be staring at something far bigger than a comeback. We might be watching the setup for a record-breaking event no one is fully prepared for.
But the White House is going down, and Conor McGregor, I think, will be fighting on it, and Jorge Masvidal would be a good matchup, okay? I'd rather watch that than Michael Chandler, respectfully, but Nate Diaz 3? Now, Nate Diaz is still a draw, right? People love Nate Diaz. He has got cult-like status in the mixed martial arts world, just like his brother. And his brother Nick, by the way, he said recently that he's going to come back as well. He said, maybe I was getting it confused, maybe he said this new generation of fighters. He's only 42 years old, he's cleaned up his act, he's been to rehab and stuff like that. Of course, last time we saw him, it wasn't a good look. He was a little bit overweight. I think it was Robbie Lawler that he fought.
And just when the White House speculation was already roaring, Daniel Cormier stepped in and poured gasoline on it. He zeroed in on the question nobody can dodge. When that historic card finally takes shape, who is actually more likely to walk into the octagon under those lights, the reigning heavyweight king Jon Jones or the returning phenomenon Conor McGregor? Cormier didn't blink. No pause, no hedging. He sided with McGregor instantly. His reasoning was almost disarmingly simple, the kind that cuts through debate. If the UFC is truly chasing the largest event in its entire history, especially one designed to flood that symbolic June 14th date with a massive, once-in-a-generation crowd, you don't anchor it to a champion alone. You anchor it to gravity itself. You build it around the biggest star the company has ever produced. And in Cormier's seasoned, analytical view, there's no grey area here. That star isn't a maybe. It isn't a debate. It has always been Conor McGregor. Not just for belts, not just for rankings, for impact, for reach, for the ability to bend the entire sports spotlight in a single direction. And if that assessment holds true, if the UFC follows the money and the momentum the way history suggests it will, then this looming announcement isn't hollow buildup. It's pressure building behind a sealed door. Because when a card of that magnitude gets tied to a name like that, it stops being rumor. It becomes inevitability. And inevitability, in this sport, usually means something unforgettable is about to erupt.
White House is what everybody's talking about. Big card on June 14th. There's going to be 100,000 people across the street.
I'm going to be in there.
Who's more likely to fight on that card, Jon Jones or Conor McGregor?
I'll say Conor McGregor. Listen,
Why?
man, if you're gonna have the biggest fight card of all time, you gotta have the biggest star the UFC has ever seen.
Yeah.
I say Conor.
On the other side of the storm, Henry Cejudo enters the conversation, and the temperature shifts instantly. The Olympic gold medalist, the former two-division UFC champion, doesn't hesitate when asked which matchup truly belongs on a historic White House card. No dramatic pause, no political answer. He drives straight toward a Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones collision, placing it above the long-whispered Francis Ngannou dream scenario with Jones. But his reasoning isn't surface-level hype, it cuts deeper. This, he argues, wouldn't be just another heavyweight spectacle. This would unfold on the nation's 250th birthday, a date soaked in symbolism, and suddenly the narrative sharpens. England versus the United States. The present and surging future of the division in Aspinall standing across from the all-time great in Jones. Not just power versus power, but era versus era. Cejudo frames it as something almost pre-written by history itself, a generational checkpoint disguised as a prize fight. Because if Jones defends his throne against the man many believe represents tomorrow, the consequences ripple far beyond a single night. And if Aspinall dethrones a legend on a stage that grand, the division doesn't just move forward, it transforms. In Cejudo's eyes, this wouldn't merely headline an event. It would carve a permanent chapter into mixed martial arts, shaping careers, rewriting legacies, and deciding who truly owns the past and who controls what comes next.
Henry, here's the potentials. Alex Pereira, Jon Jones, White House. Or Dana says, all right, Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall, White House. Or Dana says, Jon Jones, Francis Ngannou, White House. Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler, White House. What's the biggest fight out of these 4 fights here?
I'd probably say Tom and Jones.
Over Francis and Jones?
Yes. Why? Because it's the 250th birthday of our country. England versus USA. The greatest of all time. The greatest of all time versus...
I absolutely love where your head's at, because this is where it gets dangerous. The ever-insightful MMA guru isn't just interested in the White House card, he's practically vibrating at the thought of it, mind sprinting ahead to fights that feel combustible before the first glove even twitches. He's less captivated by safe spectacle and far more drawn to tension you can taste. Matchups like Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev, where every stare carries subtext and every feint feels like it could trigger something irreversible. These aren't polite contests, they are powder kegs sealed inside a cage. The kind of bouts that make an arena fall into that eerie half-silence where thousands lean forward at once, afraid to blink in case they miss the split second everything detonates. For him, it's never just about technical brilliance, though there's plenty of that. It's about volatility, about the lurking possibility that one miscalculation turns precision into chaos without warning. And you can see it, the slight grin, the almost mischievous satisfaction, as he imagines how quickly momentum could swing, how violently narratives could flip. Because in his view, these are the fights that don't just fill a card, they hijack it. They steal the oxygen from every other matchup. They become the moments replayed in slow motion for years. And if even one of these explosive pairings lands on that historic stage, the night won't just succeed. It will be defined by the instant everything changes.
Islam and Arman could be good. But I don't think there'd be too much bad blood between them. I'd want to see like a Topuria Makhachev on them.
Oh, that'd be good too.
They'd have to be separated. They'd be pushing.
And then there's Islam Makhachev, and he isn't hinting, he's declaring. The reigning lightweight king has made it crystal clear that he wants the White House spotlight, and he wants it before the window even thinks about closing. For him, this isn't another title defense to pad an already dominant resume. It's something heavier, a once-in-a-generation stage, a chance to stamp his name onto a moment that will be replayed long after belts change hands and eras dissolve. His projecting readiness with an almost chilling calm, focused, disciplined, visibly hungry for something bigger than a paycheck or applause. But here's the tension no one can dissolve. Who stands across from him when that cage door shuts? That answer remains locked away, and the silence around it only amplifies the intrigue. Every possible challenger feels like a different kind of detonation waiting to happen. A striker who gambles with fire, a grappler bold enough to test the champion at his own game. The mystery isn't fading, it's multiplying, pulling fans into speculation that grows louder by the day. And that uncertainty might be the most dangerous ingredient of all, because when Makhachev finally steps into that octagon under the weight of history, it won't feel routine, it won't feel optional, it will feel like a declaration, cold, calculated, and aimed directly at anyone who still doubts where power truly sits in this division.